goes into it. So, Megan, as a former player, you had said for a long time, hey, can we do this? And Rob said, well, no, you can't do this. We are not going to do this. So, but what, on one hand, it's obvious, but on the other hand, what were the sort of the intricacies of the layers that you said, this is a story that we need to tell, that people need to see?
Well, I think playing for Rob and kind of understanding that tradition and being a Lady Grizz and the community that came out and the fans in Missoula are incredible. So kind of what I personally experienced playing at the university, what I personally experienced growing up as a little girl, aspiring to that dream and watching the women before me. And it certainly, Rob actually lived down the road growing up for me. So there's just a lot of history in the story, personally, but just within the community. And it really was getting into it where I started to go more and more. I knew it was special, but this is a story that people should know about. And I'm sure there's stories in all sorts of different parts of the country that we're not aware of. And this is one that I think that people will be surprised and will be inspired by what happened. Because when he took over the program, nobody was following women's basketball. Women were really just getting the opportunity to play. And so here comes a star from the men's team that says, I'll take the reins of the women's, which we have to remember the time. That wasn't usual. That wasn't normal. And so took a chance on some women and made them believe that they were capable of more than they were, that was expected from them before. And then, to see what was created after that, because tradition builds tradition, and that mindset builds on mindset. So it was a really, really powerful experience for me personally, too.
Coach, what was this experience like for you? I mean, she said she wanted to do this for a long time. You said no. What changed? Why'd you give it the green light? And you've done thousands of interviews in your career. What's different about making a documentary about your own life?
Well, when Megan first called and said, I want to do this, I thought she was kidding, of course, because she's a known prankster, and felt that was probably another one coming. But I wasn't doing anything else. I was retired. I said, oh, go for it. But I had no real idea what was involved in making something like this. I've learned a lot about filmmaking and documentaries and so on through this process. But I think it really, and Megan would say it really helped out. I was about 3 months into retirement, and the ladies threw a big retirement party for me, and a whole bunch showed up, over 100, and it was a really, really nice thing for me, but it also gave them a shot at getting up here with cameras and microphones and interviewing a whole bunch of people that were intricately involved in the Lady Grizz program.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Robin Selvig and Megan Harrington in studio with us discussing the world premiere of The House That Rob Built, a documentary coming out about Coach Selvig's life and times as a coach and in general women's basketball, I think, too, and the progression of that over these last 4 decades. Megan, how did you get into the film side of this thing? You live in Los Angeles now, so, okay, that's what you do. Obviously, nobody's doing anything else in L.A. It's just all movies. But how did that path go from Missoula, Montana, where you grew up? You didn't just come here to go to school and play basketball. You're from here to get to L.A. and get into the film world.
Well, believe it or not, it was jury duty. I had jury duty, and it was a really bad case, and it was child abuse, and it was just horrible. And so I was struggling with that, and I went to see my parish priest and got spiritual direction. And this idea of being involved with filmmaking had just always been in the back of my head. And
this was in Missoula?
In Missoula.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in Missoula, and there's but the idea had always been in the back of my mind, and I just kept kind of pushing it back, and we kind of talked through things, and there's a program called Act One, which is Christian-based, and it allows you to kind of explore the world of producing or writing, whichever it is you're interested in. And I said, well, I'll apply, and if I get in, I'll go. And I wasn't right out of college. I was older, and it was a lot of risks there. But jury duty is how I ended up in L.A. I'm sure it's a normal story, Ryan. I think that's how everybody ends up in L.A.
Exactly right. Yeah, jury duty on one end or the other is how you get into L.A., I think.
When it comes to the journalism aspect of the filmmaking of this documentary, where did this big podcast series, The Grizz Greats, The Coaching Tree, and it's all the guys that either played for or coached under and then have kind of matriculated through the coaching ranks, from Judd Heathcote, who I know is a big influence of Rob's. And interviewing Rob for that podcast series was so fun because he had crossed paths with every single one
Right.
of these guys and had so much of history to talk about because it is 40 years of history. But from a sourcing perspective, this must have been so fun for you to talk to Lady Grizz that came before you, with you, and after you, because when you have 40 years of gals to pick from, I mean, that's a lot of stories.
It was, and that was so neat. From the very first years, his sister, actually, Sandy Selvig Sullivan, is one of the race players too. So talking to the early team who you become friends with because they come back and coach summer camp. So Rob's longevity just created this ability for everybody to connect and kind of with this one hub. So that was, and also we interviewed Judd Heathcote. And it was the year, I think, that he passed away later that year, I think it was. But that was a fun interview.
Yeah.
He is interesting. He was great. And he told us some really great stories that I'd never heard about this guy here to my right.
Seems like projects like these, you start with a vision and an idea, and then they take on a life of their own sometimes and start to go in directions that you don't expect. People in this part of the country are familiar with the story broadly. What is something that actually happens in the film that takes place that maybe people won't be expecting necessarily without necessarily, I don't want you to give anything away here, but
He retires at the end.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's- spoiler.
Titanic here. Yeah, I think I know how it goes. Right. But is there like what kind of took place in the process of this, maybe even for you personally, where you go, well, I hadn't expected that.
Well, we always say there's things that happen for us when we're making the film that happen for the audience and that happen for just individually, personally. So there were certainly some personal things along the way. All over and over, you see these women that you've looked up to your whole life growing up, and they're amazing. They're some of the greatest players that's come through the program, and to hear him say, well, he took a chance on me. And I'm sitting there, I felt the same way, and he really did in my case. But in those women, it was so neat to just see that someone took the time to come find them in places where not a lot of people go, small towns, reservations, farms. That was really powerful. Just uncovering what he did here too, because I knew that he'd won a lot, and I knew all the seasons, but when you just start going through all of the records,
It's amazing.
it is. And I was like, well, I knew that, but I don't think I really grasped what really happened except through this project. And it was incredible. Also, I did not know, because he would never have said, Judd Heathcote said that if he hadn't hurt his knee, he would have played professionally. And so, and he wasn't just saying that because you weren't there.
I told you how good I was many times. You guys never believe me. Did I ever lose a game of horse in 38 years?
He said he did. So that was also a moment. And to just see when the worst thing probably at the time that happened in his career ends up being beneficial to all these women because his life took a different course. So that was really powerful.
Coach, so much of what made the Lady Grizz so beloved was the fact that there was so many girls from Montana and girls that come from small town Montana. You had such great Native American players, which captured a whole different portion of the state. But like Megan mentioned, sometimes that was taking a chance on girls. Why? What gave you the courage to take chances on small town Montana people?
Well, we always recruited to get the best players we could. Fortunately for us, many of them were in Montana. And, of course, growing up in eastern Montana and being in Montana all my life, I was pretty much aware of players and coaches. I knew most all the coaches. I'd get a phone call. They say, hey, you should look at this kid. And so that wasn't that hard. No, we've had lots of really good out-of-state players, too, and they were all – I loved them all. It wasn't I would have gone anywhere to get a good player, but I really felt obligated and liked if Montana kids were talented enough to play Division I basketball, I wanted to get them. And Montana High School women's basketball was very good even years ago. There was great coaching in this state for girls basketball even early on, and so it was a mutual friendship.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Megan Harrington, Robin Selvig in studio discussing the film The House That Rob Built. It will be premiering tomorrow at the Wilma, 6 o'clock. That show is sold out, as is the Sunday evening film at the Elks, the screening at 6:30. However, a third screening has just been opened up at 2 at the UC Ballroom. If you would like to see it, there are tickets available online at Big Sky Documentary Film Festival, BigSkyFilmFestival.org. I think that's what it is. Google it, people. That's what we do. We don't go to websites, right? We just Google things. Coach, you sit down sometimes and you dust off a photo album and you go through and you go, oh my goodness, oh man, I remember that. It all kind of comes back. You've seen this film. What was it like? What was your experience of watching this, your life to an extent, on screen in this way?
Well, it really was a reminiscing thing. There was things I didn't remember. I went, oh, yeah, I forgot that.
Right.
And lots of that. And at the big retirement party the ladies threw, there was lots of reminiscing. And I never really reminisced much. I don't think coaches do. You're worried about your next game and your next season, and you don't really sit back and look back at things. Having all the ladies back from 40 years off kids off my first team were here, as well as kids off my last team. It just brought back many, many wonderful memories. I said at the retirement party, looking out at all the faces, every one of them I could have told a story about. I mean, every single one of them. And they told a lot of stories about me, half of which weren't true. But it was fun to look back. And I mentioned the retirement party because it was really a time to share all those things. And, having so many people to share things with is pretty neat.
It's interesting. This is my impression, having grown up in this town, having gone to far more Lady Grizz games than men Grizz games as a child growing up, that this program was always about the basketball and never about the coach, even though people sometimes wanted to make it about the coach at times. And you have, seems to me, always sort of tried to sidestep a lot of that, which I think is to your credit. And now here it is, sort of spotlight on you again in this. And yet the program, the years, the people are, it's obviously so much bigger than just one person and all the networking. Do you appreciate that it kind of runs through you in a certain way, but yet it has always been and grown into something that's been so big and impactful to so many people, to the players, the fans, the city, the region, the sport, the gender, all of that?
Well, no question. That's one thing about this film. I don't look at it as being a film about me. I really don't. There's a story being told here about the growth of women's sports, about opportunities for women, about opportunities for Native American women, the struggle from the early days when I first started and there weren't scholarships and NCAA didn't sponsor and we were AIAW. And so it's a story that a lot of people that were in this from the beginning can relate to. And there's tremendous pioneers in women's basketball. I don't put myself in necessarily in that category, the Pat Ed Summits and the Jody Conrads and the ones that battled from the start. But just to be a part of the growth of women's sports and women's basketball here was a pretty rewarding experience. I had three sisters, a couple that got opportunities to play sports, one that I think only got 1 year in high school maybe to play sports. There was no sports for them. That's not that long ago. I'm old, but I'm not that old. And so, I could personally relate to women getting opportunities. I probably have told this before. It's maybe not funny, but we used to rib our sisters. There was 5 boys in our family and 3 girls, so we had a starting 5 and 3 cheerleaders. And I'll guarantee you that did not go over well at the time.
And it won't now.
And it won't now. So,
Megan, it's been several years we've been doing interviews with directors, producers for documentaries, and it seems as if everybody that's involved in the actual making of these films, they get so invested, they become so connected to it. But this was such an influential part of your life before you ever even got into filmmaking. So making a film like this that's also partly the story of your life, what was that experience like for you?
Just amazing. I'm grateful for that opportunity. And then the team that we work with, John Sippi will be here tomorrow. He's a director as well. So talented, so hardworking. Knew nothing about the Lady Grizz, knew nothing about Rob. I don't think he'd ever been to Missoula. And he really just fell in love with the story because it's a universal story. And the editor, John Lewis Kaela, down the stretch, since you've been interviewing people, it's brutal. And, they weren't just settling for, this is good. It's just, how can it be better? How can it be better? And then we brought in the music. Grant Fonda did the music for the film. And he made that come alive. That was its own character. So each of these different moments, these different players are characters of the film. Montana itself is a character in the film because of where everybody's come from. So I'm just grateful that I got a chance to be part of telling this story that really needed to be told.
I think that so many people that do know broadly the story, they know just the legend that Coach Selvig is and the resume that he compiled. But so I think some people, like you said, maybe don't know this story around the country. What do you hope that they take when they watch this? What sort of impact do you hope this has on people that might not know much about the lineage of the Lady Grizz?
Well, somebody who just, maybe just sitting down watching a movie, likes to watch movies, comes across this story and is introduced to a place, a time that something special was happening. They're introduced to the character of Montana, to a coach. Any sports story isn't really about sports at the end of the day. It's about women overcoming obstacles in this case. There's wonderful side stories. It's not just basketball games. The basketball games helped us tell the story, but what was behind it was the human connection and the human aspect of the film. So if you are just turning this on, I hope they're inspired to say also in their own life, like I love watching sports films, and when you leave something where you're inspired, what are you going to do with your own life? What is it that maybe you've been holding back on, or what's something that you want to fix or do better or tackle? So I just hope they're inspired and that they learn a little bit about a place that was doing something that was unique.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Megan Harrington, former player and co-director of The House That Rob Built, going to be screening 3 times. We're airing films screen. That's how it works. And Robin Selvig in studio with us as well. Coach, all sports teams want to have and sort of tend to have something like, alumni who care and are interested in the program and come back to it. And it's a point of pride to say, I'm a, Nittany Lion or whatever the case may be. But I have never, ever seen any program, any sport, any school that has the familial legacy over time that it feels like the Lady Grizz have. Did you deliberately you certainly wanted that to be the case, but did you do something to start to create that? Or where did that come from? How did that build to the point where you have every Lady Grizz almost to a person who is invested in this program, no matter where they are in the world or in life or whatever, and find time to care and be back, and the ones that are here are in the building every single game?
Well, there's a bond created in that retirement party from my first teams to the last, and they told stories and they're friends. And it sounds hokey and stuff, but I've said to many teams, what we're doing now reflects on what you did in the past. We built on it. It's kind of interesting. I've been blessed by having great students in our program, and it wasn't something I had. We go to the NCAAs and we're playing somebody from the Big Ten or something, and we're on the beach in San Diego for the afternoon for a couple hours, and they're in study hall because you got to have study halls to keep these kids. Well, I never had to do stuff like that because they learned from the older kids. You got on the bus, you got out your books, and you took care of your homework. And so it built on itself in that way. And even the wanting to be our best, that grew, and it wasn't some magical thing I said in practice or anything like that. They learned that from the older kids. And we always had a freshman-based program. Nothing against JCs. There's great ones, and it's a good way to go. But I like the idea of having someone, and we had a lot of redshirts. We had a 5-year player. So the players on the team showed the younger kids this is how we do it.
Megan, for you grew up in this town, one of many girls wanting to be on that floor playing on that team. When that happened for you, what do you remember about that? What are you like, now I'm walking into the locker room, now I'm running out of the deal?
Well, I remember the call because it was about 9 p.m. on a Thursday in January, approximately January 26th.
Amazing.
And my sister Molly said, "It's phones for you, and I think it's Rob Selvig." And I was like, "Wow, that's odd," because it was late, and so I got on the phone, and we talked for a little bit. He loves talking on the phone with me, so we just chatted away. No, he didn't. So he said, "This is Rob. Do you still want to be a Lady Grizz?" And at that point, it wasn't. The scholarship opportunity wasn't there, and I thought it was a joke, and I said, "Who is this really?" And he said, "It's Rob." And then we went back and forth for about a minute.
So he played the first prank. That's what got it started.
This is where
That's
this
what
all
you
started.
thought. Yeah, right.
And then I said, "Who is this?" He said, "It's Rob." And I said, "No, really? Who is this?" And finally he got pretty intense. And he said, "Listen, do you want the scholarship or not?" And I said, "Yes." So I remember going upstairs and telling my parents, and we were crying. And it was one of the best nights.
Yeah.
Well, she told me that night at the end of the phone call that you'll never regret this. I never did.
Was there anything in this movie when you watched it that surprised you, Coach?
I'm sure there was some, because I didn't remember everything. So looking back at some things, I'd go, oh yeah. And I don't know that it surprised me. I didn't know what it was going to be like and what it would be about. I mean, it maybe surprised me what a great job they did in telling a story about women in sports and little girls wanting to have the opportunity, and it's just a whole story of that was and which is great. I mean, that is what it's about.
Megan,
You were surprised it was going to be good. Did I
No.
hear that correctly? I just don't know if I heard that correctly.
I didn't say that. I was surprised what the story was. I thought there'd be about half an hour on Meg
just
Harrington. And I edited a bunch of that out.
Megan, from an editing perspective, though, I find this fascinating because I'm a print journalist first and foremost before I ever got into radio, and so much of print journalism is taking all your interviews and using the best quotes, and so much you throw away, and you have to get over the remorse of getting rid of all this stuff or saving it for later or whatever it might be. I'm sure when you're talking about doing film interviews, you must have had hours of footage that didn't get into the film. So any plan for maybe what to do with that footage afterwards, and how hard was that part of the of the
that
making?
was hard. That was hard. There were stories where I was like, oh, but that is so good that we can, and it just didn't work. We had 59 minutes. Wonderful interviews that I think the university would really benefit from having them edited together. I know an editor that would make those available in the Hall of Champions to make that additional content. Because Judd Heathcote, he also talked about a bunch of different things. That sort of content would be wonderful because we've captured it, and I think it would be great to consider getting the remaining people who weren't interviewed for the film, because I wish we could have interviewed every single person. So that's what I would think would be a wonderful thing to do. And bonus features on the DVD. It's those other stories outside of the basketball stories that are really touching.
The House That Rob Built. It airs as part of the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival. The 2 original screenings tomorrow at the Wilma and Sunday evening at the Elks are sold out, but a third screening, 2 o'clock, Sunday in the UC Ballroom is available. You can go to bigskyfilmfest.org to get tickets for that. I can't wait to see this film. I moved to Missoula, Montana in 1992, going into 6th grade, the oldest of 4 kids. As I said, this was what we did as a family, was going to Lady Grizz basketball games. And it is so interesting, because I lived in this town, that women's basketball as the other is not even an experience that I have in my history. And now as the father of daughters, I'm very grateful to that, and it is because of this program that is the case for me. And hopefully that this film will express some of that to a wider audience as well. I'm sure that it will. Megan Harrington, Robin Selvig, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ryan and Coulter.
We'll quick break. We'll come back. We'll do something less interesting for sure next.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
College basketball madness is happening again, and there's only one place in town to catch all the games, the Desperado. Catch every buzzer beater, every Cinderella story, and every upset on the Despo's 32 TVs, while getting your fill of the best hot wings Missoula has to offer, of course. Bracket busted? Now the Despo's got you covered there too, with cold drinks by the pint or pitcher. The Despo is your headquarters for NCAA basketball, NHL, and NASCAR too. The Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell, across from the Y.
Attention, anyone in business development. Are you tired of drumming up new business only to have your prospects use your proposals to negotiate better deals somewhere else? Are you sick of getting beat up on price? Are you done working with people who are wasting your time? Would you like to make more money with less prospecting? For a new look at these age-old problems, plan to attend a free 90-minute workshop at the Wingate Hotel in Missoula, Wednesday, February 26th at 9 a.m. If you own or run a business with a team of salespeople, you'll want to attend this too. We'll discuss what separates top performers from everyone else. Stop wasting time and start making more money. Visit PowerSellingWorkshop.com to register today. PowerSellingWorkshop.com for new ways to handle old issues. PowerSellingWorkshop.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey Gus, you ever heard of Magic Johnson?
Rings a bell.
One of the greatest basketball superstars of all time played for a man named Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. And guess what? Judd Heathcote started his career at the University of Montana.
Coulter, did you know that 2 former University of Montana head coaches have been head coaches in the NBA and 1 on Team USA?
Isn't that amazing?
And that's why we've created Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcast. Just search Grizz Greats.
It's a phenomenal and historic podcast series proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. For the second time this season and the 5th time in his career, Saeed Pridgett is the Big Sky Conference Men's Basketball Player of the Week. Pridgett did a little bit of everything in leading Montana to a pair of victories over the weekend. He scored 25 points in 30 minutes in a 72-37 dismantling of Weber State, converting at will in the post, and at one point scoring 15 of 18 points for the Grizzlies. 2 nights later, Pridgett flirted with a triple-double, coming up 1 assist shy of the Howard mark. He had 24 points and 11 rebounds. 78-63 was the final margin for the Grizzlies over Idaho State.
The Montana Amateur Athletic Union announced the finalists for the Little Sullivan Award. The male finalists for Montana's top amateur athletes are Dickinson State wrestler Gresh Jones of Sydney, Montana Western linebacker Jason Ferris of Dillon, Oregon State basketball player Trace Tinkle, who's originally from Missoula, and Carroll College men's basketball player Dane Warp, who originally hails from Havre.
The female finalists include Catherine Rousseau from Butte High swim team, Lady Grizz basketball player Mackenzie Johnston out of Helena Capital, North Dakota State track standout Paige Harris, originally of Plentywood, and University of Montana golfer Tegan Avery from Kalispell Glacier.
And finally, Montana State will induct 6 athletes in the Bobcat Athletic Hall of Fame on Friday night, including legendary former defensive end Dane Fletcher.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
That makes me so very happy. Fantastic. Robin Selvig, Meg Arrington in here. We'll talk more about that interview in just a moment. If you missed it, listen to it on the podcast. It'll be out here soon. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Here's what we want you to do. It is a Wing It Wednesday, after all. Give us a call, 329-1899, 329-1899. Some Robin Selvig-based trivia questions here for you. 329-1899. You want wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern, the best wings in the city of Missoula. Come on into the show and, answer some questions. It'll be that easy. 329-1899. We'll do it right now. But Coulter, to have those two in here and to discuss that, and again, it's interesting because this show started while Robin Selvig was still the head coach, but it wasn't within but a year, maybe 2, that he retired. And so most of the interviews that I have done with Coach Selvig, I think the first interview I did with him was the last one that I did that was about basketball because it was the last time he was coaching in a game before the announcement of the retirement. Everything else has been sort of retrospective, and I think it took some time for reasonably where it's not really what he wants to talk about. You're always going one foot in front of the other, like you said, and now at this point, especially with this documentary coming out, so interesting and enjoyable to talk to him and to Meg Harrington as well about 40 years and what that has meant, so very broadly, very, very interesting.
Well, I think that you said it best, too, when you bid them goodbye, in that women's basketball, especially if you grew up in Missoula in the late 80s and early 1990s, it was not even in the realm of consciousness that was the number 2 or second to the Grizz. And the men Grizz were rolling at that moment as well under Blaine Taylor in the 90s, like when you were referencing that timeline. Yet I really didn't have any comprehension that women's basketball was less popular or less prestigious.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. It wasn't at all.
Yes.
I mean, the Lady Grizz during the 90s were drawing 5,500 fans every single night. I mean, they were outdrawing what the men are doing right now. And so it's I think that what they tried to frame it as a documentary about the evolution of women's sports in America, especially in small town America, is phenomenal because it is one of the great examples of that we've seen.
Let's do a little Wing It Wednesday about with some trivia regarding the career of Robin Selvig. We go to the phone. We welcome in Scott to the show. Scott, hi. How are you?
Great, thanks. How about you guys?
Well, we're doing great, Scott. We appreciate it. Now, have you? Did you go to some Lady Grizz basketball games for a while, for a space of time? Well, Coach Selvig was the head coach there.
For pretty much the whole time he was there.
Okay. Well, this might work out for you. Okay, today. Here's the deal. We got 3 questions for you, my friend. You get 2 of them right, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. You get all 3, you're going to get yourself a shirt to go along with it. If you need help on any of these, Coulter is your lifeline, all right?
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Tell me likey. Tell me what wingy.
All right, Scott, here we go. Question number 1. For how many seasons was Robin Selvig the head coach of the Montana Lady Grizz basketball team?
I'm going to say 38 seasons.
You are spot on. I would have probably even given you some leeway because it's not a round number, but 38 years is exactly right. That's how long he was the head coach. To the nearest 50, how many wins did Robin Selvig rack up over the course of his 38 seasons as the head coach?
Oh, wow, I should know this. There's so many milestones that are just jumbling in my head right now. I'm sorry to say I may need a lifeline on this one.
It's okay. I got you covered. It's one of my best subjects. I was fortunate enough for my first journalism job to be covering Lady Grizz basketball. There was many peaks of Robin Selvig's career, and probably the last real great peak in the mid-2000s when Manny Morales and Sonia Rogers and Brittany Lohman were playing, and they won 28 games, I think, 3 years in a row. But Coach Selvig, he won 865 games in his prestigious and ultimately a historic career.
Do you accept that, Scott, as an answer?
I pretty much have to, and I've looked at that banner countless times, and I just couldn't recall it. I was going to guess a little over 900, so I might have been off. So thanks. I'll go with a final answer.
Well, I'm sorry. Coulter's incorrect on this. No, I'm kidding. It would just be funny for the guy to espouse how much he knows about this and then get it wrong. He did not go to the nearest 50. He went to the nearest 1. 865. 850 was what I was looking for, but 865 will work because that is exactly right. Scott, on the strength of that, you got wings to the Desperado, my friend. Congratulations there. Outstanding work. Now, one more for you. Okay, one more for you. This for a shirt. How many NCAA tournament appearances did Robin Selvig make with the Lady Grizz? And I must say, I should know this to help you out a little bit. I'm not even sure there was an NCAA tournament as such at the beginning. Perhaps there was, but in any case, out of 38 seasons, how many NCAA tournament big dances did the Montana Lady Grizz go to?
I'm going to say 19.
You know what? Again, I should have given some leeway because it's not around. You are all over this, Scott. You know your stuff. We're throwing a shirt in for this on this. It's actually 21 is the answer. 21 NCAA tournament appearances, and I believe 24 conference championships as well in there. I mean, it's incomprehensible. So congratulations. You got your shirt. You got yourself your wings. You're going to get set up. Give your information to David in the back, and way to know your Montana Lady Grizz history, my man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You got it.
It's a little muddy because Montana played in the the Northwest Basketball League,
right?
For Coach Selvig's first 4 seasons. The 4th of those seasons was the first year of the AIAW tournament, and that was before the NCAA tournament. The first year of the women's NCAA tournament, 1982. So Montana would have gone to the NCAA tournament 22 times, but there was the 21 times because that's all the tournaments that there was. But, I mean, his resume is unbelievable, man. He was 20 times the coach of the year in his respective league, 5 times in the Mountain West and 15 times in the Big Sky.
This is the one that blows my mind. What's the benchmark in college basketball for having had a really good season?
20 wins.
20 wins. You get 20 wins. That's just the standard. If you hit 20, you're doing something right, okay? And you know why that's the standard? Because it's not easy to do. I mean, 20 wins is a very, very solid season. 31 times the Lady Grizz won 20 games or more under Robin Selvig. I mean, that is... I don't know that I can really properly contextualize how remarkable that is. I mean, to do that, the consistency over time that represents about just always being very good to elite within those bands of ranges. Very good to that's remarkable.
Well, it was also so often that it was hardly ever a 21-9 or a 20-10. It was almost always a 26-4, a 28-3. I mean, 865 wins. But he did it in less than 1,200 games. He was 865 and 286. He only lost 286 games in 38 years. I mean, he won almost 76% of his games for 4 decades. It's unbelievable.
It is. It's totally remarkable. So congratulations to Scott. We will do another Wing It Wednesday at the top of the hour. We also, now let's not forget, our conversation was so good. I had this big plan that I was going to ask Rob how he sent the invite to Korn to come play in the house that he built. But it just didn't go quite that direction. It didn't feel quite right. And, I'm not sure here. I'm not going to, but my best guess is that he's not the biggest fan of nu metal as a genre, Coach Selvig. So I didn't go that way, but I would like to know. Nonetheless, we're giving away tickets to that show in the house that Rob built, the physical house that Rob built, Adams Center on Sunday night in this show. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, Joe Burrow said he wanted to be a Bengal. Is he not wanting to be a Bengal now that he's hired Carson Palmer's brother to be his personal QB coach? We'll discuss next.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the Advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Seafood lovers, it's time to get cracking at the Montana Club's annual Lobster Fest. Feast on one of our 19 mouth-watering lobster dishes, live Maine lobster, succulent lobster tail, and tantalizing one-of-a-kind lobster specialties. 3 big days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, March 5th through the 7th. It only happens once a year. Don't miss it. See the menu at montanaclub.com. The Montana Club's Lobster Fest on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
Do you know a high school student who knows how to work hard, compete, and be a giver in everything they do? Do you know a high schooler who excels in the classroom, who exemplifies school spirit, and is involved in improving our community? Nominations for the Mattress Firm Student of the Year are now being accepted.
Communications and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
'Cause he's an old hippie and he don't know what to do. Should he hang on to the old? Should he grab on to the new? He's an old hippie. This new life is just a bust. He ain't trying to change nobody. He's just trying real hard to adjust. He was sure back in the 60s.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Great to be with you on this very fine Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We were going to talk about Joe Burrow potentially going to be a Bengal. He said that initially he was happy to be a Bengal and now maybe having second thoughts, which, I don't know. Got a new coach. You got Colt Anderson. What's not what to like about your situation in Cincinnati right now? But
your impending death playing behind the worst offensive line in the league?
Not the worst offensive line in the league. The worst offensive line in the last 50 years of professional football.
I don't know about that.
I mean, my goodness, horrendous.
The Houston Texans, when they were an expansion franchise,
that's
had unbelievably horrific offensive line, which I think ruined David Carr's career. I think that Carr would have been at least okay if he wouldn't have got sacked. I mean, I think he seriously got sacked over 150 times his first 2 years in the league.
I think it was David, you know the answer to this, don't you? It was like 78 times that David Carr got sacked.
I don't want to talk about David Carr. R.I.P.
So bitter.
Pour one out for the sad, sad David Carr career.
But this is what I want to talk about. This is breaking news from Adam Schefter.
Great.
The NFL playoff structure is about to change.
What are they going to do? I hope that they do what they should do.
Which is what?
Not give division winners home games when they have terrible records.
I've always thought that the NFL playoffs were perfect. I love the division winning, getting a bye. I don't care about it, or not a bye, but a home game. 2 byes, 6 teams each conference. I think it's perfect. It's the right number of teams. 12 teams out of 32 go. The regular season is important. They're adding a team.
I see that.
From each conference, and now only one team will get a bye in the postseason. Is this right? And so then it's going to be
top seed gets a bye.
And so what you would have is the 6 teams that are there would all play each other 3 playoff games in the opening weekend, presumably the wild card weekend or whatever.
Right.
And then then you would have 4 teams left on each side. And so essentially what you do is you add a team and you lose a bye team is what happens here. Because you're still going to have the same number of games, 2 games in the divisional round, then the championship, and then the Super Bowl. But what this looks like this does is adds 1 game per conference in the wild card round. You will now have 3 games instead of 2. but only one team will have a bye instead of two. And then when you go into the divisional round, you're back to your final four. This says, again, this is per Adam Schefter, it will go into effect this upcoming season. More on ESPN.com. Colter, one thing that surprises me about this stuff with as many people like Shefty that are out there doing this, I had not heard anything about this as a possibility, like rumblings that something like this, like the change to the... I mean, you always hear, well, are they going to add a game, subtract a game, less preseason games, whatever. So they're always tinkering with stuff and some of the rule changes and some of the things like that. But this is a significant change to the structure of the playoffs. Now 14 teams are getting in instead of 12. And at no point had I even heard a rumor of something like this. And now I'm being told this is real. This is happening.
Well, it's because there's only like a couple of guys that are actually doing real journalism.
Just a proposal.
Is it a proposal?
Yeah, it's being proposed under the new CBA. It's nothing definitive.
Adam Schefter, I'll read the tweet. Adam Schefter, okay, check mark next to the saying, NFL playoff structure is about to be changed under the current CBA proposal. That is a proposal. Okay, 7 teams from each conference will make the playoffs with only one bye per conference. Source tell ESPN it would go into effect this upcoming season. But I mean, that's the proposal, or the CBA is a proposal. But he says it is about to change. So I don't know. Maybe this is the rumbling. Do you like this? What's your initial reaction to this if this was true? Like if this was actually going to happen?
I mean, I think that the NBA has too many teams in the playoffs. If you're going to keep 16 teams in the playoffs, I think you need to restructure it, because the way that it's structured right now with conferences, I was looking at the Eastern Conference standings, and like the teams that are in 6th, 7th, and 8th right now are like 10 games under 500. We're just past the All-Star break, and they're still like in the driver's seat for playoff spots. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and this has been the way the NBA has been for a little while now, where you have teams that are going to get 10th in the West that have 15 more wins than the teams that get 7th and 8th in the East. So I think if you have one of the best records in the NBA, especially because it's an 82-game schedule where you play every team in the league at least twice, that if you have one of the best 16 records in the league, if you're going to have 16 teams make the playoffs, it should be your 16 best teams, not 8 and 8 in each conference and leave some better teams out. I think that one of the things that's beautiful about the NFL playoffs is that you have to be on the fringe of a top 10 team in the league to make the playoffs. And that's why I think it's great. Adding another team, I don't know. Does that dilute the product? I'm not sure. I was hoping for a restructuring where a terrible NFC East winner like the Eagles this year don't get a home game against a team that's substantially better than them. But I don't know. What do you think of this?
Well, I have no problem with a 7-9 division winner, which is very rare, getting in. Okay, because I think the division games, you play them twice as opposed to once against everybody else, and they matter more. They palpably are more interesting and more important than the other games on your schedule. And so I like the fact that there is a race within a race in that respect, even if it does deliver from time to time a team that doesn't really deserve to be in compared to other teams. And if you want to ask me what I do like about this, it's this. The 7th team that's getting in is probably going to be a team that's better than the worst division-winning team.
Probably true.
And so maybe that allays some of what you talked about, where all of a sudden now that a team that did deserve, that wasn't getting in, is now going to get in. So that's good. Here's what I hate about this. One team getting a bye means there is such a huge advantage in what would potentially be a conference championship game that the team... There's only one opportunity for the team that got the bye to be playing with one game, with having had the bye week and only one game of in between them and that championship. Whereas it will ensure that a team is going to have played on Wild Card Weekend, not had a week off, and then go in. And I think we'll have a definitive disadvantage then in the NFC and AFC championship games for the right to go to the Super Bowl. I think that Look, Baltimore had a bye. They lost, okay? And so then Tennessee was the team that went and lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. So obviously it doesn't ensure anything like, the two teams with the bye go ahead and play for it. But there's an equity there with having two teams that have byes when you get into the later rounds of the playoffs and when it's really on the line, when you're talking about a trip to the Super Bowl, that will not it's not even now possible for it to be the case here. And there's a certain, 3 teams in the NFC were 13-3.
Yes.
New Orleans was on the out, didn't have a chair when the music stopped, so to speak. And that's disappointing. That's just a bummer. They didn't deserve what happened to them. This ensures that there are teams who, it's how rare is it where you go without question, no ifs, ands, or buts, that's the best team in the conference. It happens. New England was 16-0. Okay, so it does happen where there's a definitive best team, and so good for you. You've earned your bye. But I think it's so much more frequent where there are multiple teams who have maybe even identical records, often identical records, 12-4, 13-3, and now you got one team who isn't going to have a bye for no reason other than the tiebreaker fell that way. And that I don't love.
So many of the tiebreakers are determined by performance on the field. Don't you think that giving such a high priority to the number one seed will improve the football as a whole?
No.
Because we see teams navigate the last 3 weeks of the season when they know what they've already clinched or what they could clinch. I think this way, everybody's gunning for the number one seed, and they will have to gun for the number one seed until the final game of the year, especially when there's 3 teams with 13-3. No one's going to rest anybody. Everybody's going to be taking an extra shot before the game to make sure that they can play. Is that good for the overall long-term health of the players? No, but at this point in the NFL, that's a complete facade anyways. So just give me the best players that are out there running it every single weekend.
I think that's a good point. I think there's a potential where if you are guaranteed to just be the 2 or 3, then week 17 you take it off because you're not playing for anything, because there isn't a second bye that's available. So you could have that sort of effect on it. I do think, though, also there is in week 16 and especially week 17, there's going to be a lot. Right now, there's usually about 3 or 4 games that matter for seeding, and often there is one game where you're like, okay, this is a playoff game. Like the winner gets in and the loser is out in week 16 or 17. I think this increases the number of those week 17 games that have direct impacts both for seeding and for entry into the tournament, and that gets great. Like that can really, I think, improve the fun and the interest in the final weekend of the season. But I don't think that's lacking anyways. Here's the thing. How many games do you watch in an NFL weekend?
1.
Okay, you watch 1.
1 to 2.
Maybe somebody watches even 3 or 4. Right, David's watching them all. That's fine. But all I'm saying is this. The games that don't matter in week 17 between 2 bad teams who are already out, you weren't going to watch anyway. So those games existing, I don't think is bad. What does matter is that ensures that there are games that are worth watching in the last weekend of the season, which almost always there are. Maybe now there's more. Maybe that's good for the league or whatever. I still think though 14 out of 32. I like 12. I just like 12. I think it matters. It makes the playoffs more. It makes the regular season more of a prove-it ground than this, but only slightly. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm out on this for that reason. I think there's something to like. I think there's something to not like here, and I'm interested to see if this really is real. Adam Schefter tweeted it. It's like in stone, right? It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. SWX Montana Television. Hour number 1 in the books. If you missed the first hour of the show, check it out on the podcast. Unbelievable conversation to open the show with Megan Harrington, the co-director of the house that Rob built, also a former Lady Grizz herself, and Robin Selvig, the subject of the film, as well as, obviously, the legendary head coach of Montana women's basketball program. Check it out on the podcast. Tutel and Nuanez podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. It's there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Another Wing It Wednesday. Give away some corn tickets, some more conversation and questions. Cat Grizz coming up this Saturday. All in hour number 2, all next. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
At Opportunity Bank of Montana, we know that checking accounts are not one size fits all. Let us introduce you to Opportunity Bank's full suite of checking account products, including personal and business options with no minimum balance and no monthly service fee. Or if earning cash back suits you, Opportunity Reward Checking may be the perfect fit. Need to earn interest? We have those options too. Call or come into Opportunity Bank for a checking account that fits you. Opportunity Bank of Montana, serving Montanans since 1922. Member FDIC.
Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6 is out now with Pat Kennedy. Pat Kennedy was the head coach of the University of Montana for 2 seasons in 03 and 04, in between Don Holst and Larry Krastowiak. He's the one head coach since Judd Heathcote, who was outside the University of Montana coaching tree, and his short tenure as head coach at the UM was largely unsuccessful, going under 500 both seasons. That said, his tenure at the University of Montana also marked a turning point for the Grizzly program. What started with great optimism and eventually led to the program giving way to Larry Krastowiak and Pat Kennedy's personal story are also very intriguing. An assistant coach to the great Jim Valvano, and a head coach to a bevy of first-round NBA picks, including Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward at Florida State. Our conversation with Pat Kennedy is both illuminating and highly entertaining. So check out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6, out now wherever you get your podcasts. Grizz Greats is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, Stockman's Bar, and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
Hey, it's Carolyn, the chick who doesn't know about sports. Tune into my weekly segment on Fridays where we talk about, well, I don't really know what we talk about. Sometimes it's sports, sometimes it's athletes. It's usually gossip, but it's always funny.
The Chick Who Doesn't Know About Sports is brought to you each week by the Iron Grizz. The Iron Grizz is hosting weekly wine tastings each Wednesday beginning at 6 p.m. So tune into Tutel Nuanez each Friday to listen to Carolyn.
That's me.
The Chick Who Doesn't Know About Sports, presented each week by the Iron Grizz next to the University of Montana Golf Course.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork Law Offices. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Here's a little bit of sports news for you. For the second time this season and the 5th time in his career, Montana senior Saeed Pridgett is the Big Sky Conference Men's Basketball Player of the Week. He did a little bit of everything in leading Montana to a pair of victories over the weekend. 25 points in 30 minutes and a 72-37 dismantling of Weber State, in which he scored 15 of 18 points for the Grizzlies during one stretch. That's, pretty good. Also, 2 nights later, Pridgett flirted with the 3rd triple-double in Grizz history, finishing 1 assist shy of the Howland mark. Also had 24 points and 11 rebounds in that game. It was a 78-63 win over Idaho State.
The Montana AAU announced the finalists for the Little Sullivan Award. The male finalists for Montana's top amateur athlete are Dickinson State wrestler Gresh Jones of Sydney, Montana Western linebacker Jason Ferris of Dillon, Oregon State basketball player Trace Tinkle of Missoula, and Carroll College men's basketball player Dane Warp, originally of Havre.
The female finalists include Catherine Rousseau from the Big Butte High swim team, Lady Grizz basketball player Mackenzie Johnston out of Helena Capital, North Dakota State track standout Paige Harris, originally of Plentywood, and University of Montana golfer Tegan Avery from Kalispell Glacier.
And finally, Montana State will induct 6 former athletes into the Bobcat Athletic Hall of Fame on Friday night, including legendary former defensive end Dane Fletcher and Ellie Rudy, the only female national champion Bobcat track history.
Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law.
Simpler
Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Coulter Nuanez.
We'll further clarify the adjustments potentially to the NFL playoff structure. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. We'll also do a Wing It Wednesday. It's Coulter's Questions are coming up right now. So you want to give us a call, you can, 329-1899, 329-1899, to get yourself some wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. We are, by the way, all guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. We are on the World Wide Web. Have you heard of that thing? What a gizmo. 1029ESPN.com. You go there. You listen live on the Listen Live tab. It's called a stream. It's available all the time. It's there thanks to Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. You also can check out the podcast that's there. The Grizz Greats podcast is out. Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. We will hear from Pat Kennedy. Kennedy? Where did that come from? I don't know. Pat Kennedy is who we will hear from at the end of the show from that Grizz Greats podcast. So looking forward to hear from him. And also, in about a half hour from now, Trisha Binford, the head coach of the Montana State women's basketball team, is going to join us. I want to clarify. We'll get to this Wing It Wednesday here in just a moment, but not clarify, but just add to our discussion about the adjustment to the playoff situation. This is in the CBA, which is the new CBA, which is currently being, what do they say, adjudicated or however are argued about, figured out, sorted out, discussed.
Negotiated.
Yeah, there it is. Negotiated. Thank you, David. Here's what is striking to me in an article that has just been put up at ESPN. First of all, that this playoff structure has been agreed to by both sides. So at the point that the CBA is a done deal, that will be in there. That is why it is fairly uncontroversial, at least at this point, according to Adam Schefter, that will be the new playoff structure for the NFL. It has some financial ramifications that are in favor of football, of players. First of all, getting two more teams into the postseason, you get paid, if you're in the postseason. And so that's good for the players. And also, teams on a bye, though it'll only be one, will also get paid, which they didn't before. Did you know that, Colt? I didn't know that bye teams were not paid in the bye week.
Right.
I mean, they don't play, so it's that's fine. But you're in the playoffs, and it's so like there's additional playoff checks that come for teams in the playoffs. But now getting two more teams in, it's obviously a bigger financial boon for everybody because there's going to be two more games to play. But the other thing, and this is the thing that struck me, this CBA, which if you go back 2, 3, 4 years, Coulter, we thought there was going to be a work stoppage. We thought there could be strikes. We didn't know if there could even be a season. They're saying that this could be done in a week. Within the next week that this CBA could be agreed to, signed, sealed, and delivered. I mean, that is remarkable and hugely optimistic compared to what I was expecting when you talk about all of the give and take, the amount of money that players weren't making when the new NBA agreement came up, and a bunch of NFL players were upset about that. They are still negotiating, by the way, whether to play a 17th regular season game as opposed to just the 16th. But anyway, we'll cover that and much more. We go now to the phones for a Wing It Wednesday, and we welcome Mike to the show. Mike, hi, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, great, Mike. I'm glad that you're doing great. We're happy to have you in here. Mike, it's time to do a little bit of trivia. Here's the deal. We got 3 questions for you. If you get 2 of them right, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. Have you had the wings at the Desperado, Mike?
Absolutely.
Oh, gracious. What's your favorite flavor?
You got to go hot.
You like the hot wings? I'm hot teriyaki myself, but I like the hot wings too. I'm with you all day. You know what? You can't really go wrong. If you get all 3 of them, you're going to get yourself a shirt to go with it. If you need any help on these, I am your lifeline because these are Coulter's questions. Does that sound all right
Boy,
to you?
some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Tell me likey. Tell me want wingy.
Okay. Mike, here we go. Question number 1 from Coulter. Coulter, what do we got? Are these themed over here?
These
Coulter?
are themed, yep.
Okay.
So these are about NFL quarterbacks who are getting a little long in the tooth.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
So number 1, there's been some guys that have been long
Terry
time.
Bradshaw?
Nah, the guys that are currently playing. So right now there's several guys that are on the move and or moving into retirement. Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning and on down the line. in terms of, we talked about, Drew Brees coming back to the Saints, Tom Brady, who nobody knows what he's doing. There's all sorts of veteran quarterbacks that are sort of on the move. So they're themed like that. So, number one, Mike, in the 2004 NFL Draft, who was Eli Manning traded for on draft day?
Philip Rivers.
Absolutely.
Philip Rivers.
Good job. Very good, Mike. Yes.
So the New York Giants took Philip Rivers 4th and traded him to the San Diego Chargers for Eli Manning. Okay, 1 for 1. Got a lifeline left. Number 2, Philip Rivers sat behind this eventual MVP quarterback in San Diego, but then took over for this MVP quarterback. Name that quarterback, former Chargers quarterback, who Philip Rivers ended up overtaking with the San Diego Chargers.
It wasn't Drew Brees, was it?
It was indeed Drew Brees.
Whoa! How about that? Look at you all on your own. You don't even need me? That's outstanding. That's wings in the pocket, in the palms, in the face of Mike right there. Good job, Mike. Congratulations. Let's see if we can't get you a shirt now, too.
All righty.
All right. The 2004 NFL Draft that Philip Rivers and Eli Manning were each taken in, there were 17 quarterbacks drafted in that draft.
Wow.
Including a handful of guys that will probably go to the Hall of Fame. In terms of quarterback drafts, the 1983 draft with John Elway, Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, and the 2004 draft are sort of on par, although I think the 83 draft has some more top-shelf guys. Right. But name me 2 guys that won Super Bowls out of that 2004 NFL draft.
That won Super Bowls. Well, Ben Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger has 2.
Very well done.
Oh, man. Are they still? So they're still playing?
Well, it doesn't have to be active. I mean, we are talking about a same draft, so.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to reach out for a lifeline now.
Well, Ben Roethlisberger was my big help to you. I'm wondering if was Kurt Warner?
I mean, the clue was in the other question.
Oh, I didn't even listen. I was checked out.
The 2004 NFL Draft was when the 1st and 4th picks were traded for each other.
Drew Brees?
No.
Yeah.
Well, he did win.
Right, but that was he was drafted in 2001.
Eli Manning?
Indeed.
Maybe the other?
Yep.
Or one of the others?
Eli Manning is correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, those are 2 of them.
How many
That's
Super Bowl?
all I needed.
Was Donovan McNabb in that class, too?
Donovan McNabb was not.
Okay. He didn't win a Super Bowl anyways. No, he didn't. I was just curious for my own druthers. But guess what? 3 of 3 for you, Mike. Congratulations. You got yourself a shirt. You got yourself some wings. Give David your information. We'll get you set up with all of that.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. You got it, dude.
Other quarterbacks drafted in that draft included J.P. Lossman out of Tulane. Who else was in that draft? Matt Schaub was in that draft.
Okay, but did anybody else win a Super Bowl?
Those are the only 2 guys that actually won Super Bowls.
Okay.
Remember Craig Krenzel?
No, I don't.
From Ohio State?
No.
It's too bad.
Is it?
I mean, I think he won a national championship. Remember Jeff Smoker?
No.
Michigan State? That was great. He had a great name.
Smoker is the man.
Speaking of great names,
Matt
Coulter,
Mock from LSU.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Remember B.J. Simmons from Texas Tech? First guy to ever throw over 5,000 yards in a season? Nope, you don't remember anything.
Yeah, I was busy. Coulter, we talk about great names.
Yep.
Do you realize that there is a heavyweight title bout on Saturday night?
Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder.
I mean, think about 2 heavyweight boxers named Fury and Wilder.
Yeah.
I mean, how great is that?
I just desperately want to believe in the legend of Deontay Wilder, and I desperately want to believe that a Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua title fight could bring back heavyweight boxing if the title was finally united for the first time in 20-plus years. So therefore, I think that Saturday is a huge moment in the arc of boxing because I think that Deontay Wilder needs to knock Tyson Fury out.
I do
because
too.
I think if Fury's already been talking all week how, first of all, he's going to knock out Wilder in the second round, and second of all, how when his contract is up, only has 3 fights left, he's going to retire. I think that there's not going to be the fanfare behind a Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua fight. And I also don't know if Fury will even fight him. If he gets that belt from Wilder, Anthony Joshua has had to fight his way back to get some of his belts back.
I mean, the loss of Joshua by Diaz has really hurt, or to Diaz, really hurt the arc of this thing because what you want to see are two guys who have goose eggs in the L column and knockouts in the win column going against each other. And now you don't have that because Wilder, while he has not lost a fight, does have the tie with Fury from their last bout. And Anthony Joshua just has a loss. I mean, straight loss, like a knockout loss. So
right, but he did avenge it.
Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz.
Oh, Ruiz.
Diaz.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you.
But then he fought him again
and won
in a unanimous decision. Yep.
Here's my thing. I've been watching a lot more boxing recently. Of not Lola, I mean it's professional boxing. It's even title bout boxing, but just not pay-per-view stuff, not the big title fights. Just fights that are on ESPN television, maybe on Fox Sports, whatever it might be. The energy that surrounds any fight that happens with two guys that you've never heard of until you sit down to watch them come into the ring for the fight. And I think the commentators in boxing do a great job of contextualizing the people involved for the viewer because most viewers don't know who these guys are very often. If you will sit down and spend the time to take it is as great as it gets. The event, the excitement, the pulp and circumstance that is fight night.
Do you like UFC?
I don't really like UFC, man.
Why? Because they do everything that you're saying at a way higher level, and the stars now, this current state of media, are just much more recognizable.
I've watched plenty of UFC. I mean,
what's the drawback? Why don't you like it?
It is. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think too violent is necessarily how it strikes me, but it is.
I mean, it's okay if it is. It's the most violent sport that's ever been created.
I mean, it is very violent. Okay, so that's not quite true. I mean, the Roman Colosseum had quite a thing, sure. But in any case, it's this thing. Even though the rules that govern the thing are the same. Many of these fighters are not performing the same sport against one another. And there is an asymmetry to that in addition to there is always a twinge of not what actually happens very often, but what could happen. The anxiety about I might see an actual broken bone, which I have witnessed watching, UFC before. I mean, like not just a break, but like a gruesome injury.
Absolutely.
And so the blood doesn't bother me per se, and I understand. Like I don't have a moral issue with it. These are people who have chosen to do this. They understand the circumstances and all that. So that's the thing. I just don't prefer it to boxing, which I feel like I can understand a little bit better. I see it a little bit better, and there is. I mean, I'm no historian on this stuff, or I'm not the guy who is an authority on this. Okay, but there is a certain purity to boxing to me in terms of the sport itself, the sweet science of it that I like. And when you get a great fight, a great boxing match, you can see the will at work. Whereas in UFC, it's a lot of times 4.5 minutes of rolling around on the mat. And I know there's a lot going on there. It's exhausting. I admire the endurance and all that stuff, but it's not that great. Now, there's plenty of bad boxing matches, too, where you're like, well, what are we doing here? So I understand that. I just prefer boxing. And I think that I understand what you're saying about the stars and the promotion of it and everything like that. I think the entrance, there's nothing just better in boxing. I just think the whole event is better. I prefer the square to the octagon. Maybe I'm, you know, I hate the number 8. I always have. I'm just kidding on that. But that's just where I'm at.
I really love UFC. I go out of my way to order it most of the time, especially when it's the real stars. I get what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of it. I think that it's just so much of professional sports is the star power, and I think that's largely what's missing from boxing, and it's why I really hope that the Joshua Wilder fight happens, because that's what it takes in boxing.
Is Wilder a star?
He's not this type of star that he should be.
Let me ask you this. Not is he a star, like, do people but him himself, if you're looking at him and listening to him talk, is he a star? Does he have it?
I say he could, but right now, those like Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, at least within the American consciousness, are nowhere close to the reputable names like John Bones Jones.
100% no. But
that's because these guys need each other. Boxing is so much about rivalries and trilogies, and that's the whole thing about this Wilder Fury fight. Is I hope it doesn't get in the way, because if either one wins, we might, since the first one was a tie, we might have to have a trilogy before we actually get the Wilder Joshua fight. I just think that Wilder has some star power. I think Joshua has exceptional star power. Joshua is a worldwide phenomenon. He's not as popular in America yet, just because, I think partially because of the rise of the UFC. But he's the guy that kicked down the Iron Curtain of boxing, so to speak, and beat the Klitschko brothers.
Right.
The Klitschko brothers would never fight each other. So the title has been divided forever. And Joshua ended up beating those guys, but now he needs that other rival. And I mean, think about all the great rivalries.
Wilder beat Klitschko also, one of them,
right? Yeah. And so that's the whole thing. Is first of all, there's just too many belts,
right?
And that's the hardest part, because there's not one governing body. Whereas the UFC, if you're the light heavyweight champion of the world, you're the light heavyweight champion of the world. I think that the origin of the UFC is so fascinating, because when you talk about true fighting, boxing is a sport. It's a fighting-oriented sport. But when you talk about the carnal nature of fighting, like the first UFCs, that was the beauty and the chaos of it. Was this dude does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this dude does Taekwondo, this dude is a kickboxer, this dude's a boxer, this dude's a street fighter. Who's going to win?
And there's almost no rules. There's no weight divisions.
There was no weight divisions early, and that's the craziest part. And I think that in terms of scoring and things like that, would Floyd Mayweather be able to hang with Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder? He'd probably dance around and be able to make the fight last. When it really comes down to it, if those guys got him in the corner, they would kill him.
Right.
They would annihilate him. Whereas that's the thing I think that really puts the UFC over the top, is that there isn't a lot of interdivisional fighting, but some of the all-time great guys, because it's so predicated on skill, athleticism, and the diversity of your martial arts acumen, there are some guys. George St. Pierre, for example, I think he could beat almost every champion when he was at his prime. I mean, who knows how he would do against a 275-pound guy? Probably wouldn't have that good of a chance, because he's only 155 pounds. But that's the beauty of it. Like Hoist Gracie, have you ever seen Hoist Gracie?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Hoist Gracie is like your dad walking around in a bathrobe in his Taekwondo robe, and he was just choking fools out.
Just taking guys down. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Here's the thing, though, Golder. Pick your best, not your best, but a UFC, whatever the next one is, 270, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And Wilder Fury. Where's there going to be more star power in the ring in terms of attending?
Well, Wilder Fury, because John Bones Jones has fought.
Here's the thing, though. John Bones Jones, the most compelling figure, the biggest star in fighting, period, right now is Conor McGregor. Still. And I am drawn to anything that he does because of that very reason, right? To me, I think the next two are both boxers. And it's Deontay Wilder at the top because of who and how he is. I mean, Deontay Wilder is the thing that your vision of what a heavyweight boxer should be and look like and how he should go about, just swinging from his knees, right? I mean, just winding up and just from the seat of his pants, haymakers, right? I mean, that's the thing that you're looking for, and he understands that, and he is that. Now, is he as good a boxer as other? I don't know, but he brings that mentality to the ring, but also understands what he is and plays that role in all of these spaces. And I think this is going to be it. And Tyson Fury, by the way, I mean, he has got to be he has to have a role in every Lionsgate action movie from here on out. I mean, he is the epitome of the just giant, cinder block four-headed man who's going to be, taking, doing security at the underground gambling arena, right?
He's the next James Bond villain.
Yes, he is.
He is. That's absolutely true. I think that one of the things that is both compelling and also makes it really hard, unless you're a hardcore fan, to follow, is how short champions reign in the UFC. When you're talking the heavyweight and light heavyweight divisions, John Bones Jones has had 15 title defenses now. That is historic. It's the most that has ever been. But, I mean, the heavyweight division, since the first UFC with a heavyweight championship fight, there's been 21 different champions. That's insane. And so I think it's hard for guys to really – I mean, there's the Anderson Silvas and the George St. Pierres of the world, certainly, but then there's also guys that reach the very pinnacle and they only stay there for half a second, and then they get overtaken, and it's really hard to build star power. So I think about this all the time because boxing was such a – I mean, when you talk about the integration of America, boxing had as much to do with it as any other sport. Mm-hmm. When you talk about Joe Louis way back in the 20s and 30s, all the way through, I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson created what we think of today as the flamboyant, marketable, brash pro athlete. And then Muhammad Ali took the Sugar Ray Robinson combined with the Gorgeous George wrestling character and made it into an explosion. But those guys truly changed the world. And I think that when Muhammad Ali was at his peak, when Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali and then he's fighting Joe Frazier and George Foreman, the star that he was and what he stood for and the way he spoke out about so many different things, he's a transcendent figure that's so far beyond sports. But I think about the way that boxing has evolved since then because it continued to be such a dominant sport. And then in the 90s, with the whole Mike Tyson saga, you couldn't be much more of a worldwide superstar than Mike Tyson was. But then over the last 20 to 25 years, the whole sport has fallen apart so much. But I think about it all the time because you always wonder what guys now, football has taken over, right? And I always think, like, what guys 50, 60, 70 years ago wouldn't have had opportunities to play football that then would be heavyweight boxers.
Yeah. Totally.
How good of a heavyweight boxer would Khalil Mack have been if he was born in the 30s, 40s,
not
50s?
Not very good.
Aaron Donald as a boxer?
Right.
I mean, goodness gracious.
No, that's so true. And I guess to me, too, this is the other thing. Last thing here. The all the circus and all of the controversy and all of the bribery that judges are on the take and all the different belts and everything that has been this thing where you can't believe what you're watching when it comes to boxing.
Totally.
When it comes to the result of that, I get that, and it's egregious, and I hate that part of it. But if you allow yourself to just watch the whole thing, the music, the lights, the dancing, the ringside, all of it, and and then watch the actual product inside the ring, it's a thrill. It's a thrill as a fan to watch it. And you don't even have to know. It doesn't have to be your guy, your team, your country, whatever. Just the thing itself is great. That's all. Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Give us a call because, boys and girls, we want to send you into the ring. Also known as the Adams Center on Sunday night to go see Korn and Breaking Benjamin right now. 329-1899, 329-1899. Give us a call. We will send you to see Korn and Breaking Benjamin Sunday night. Ty Gregorak going to be there, sending videos of his son moshing in his living room to us. Beautiful. Love it. Okay. Coulter and I going to be there. David's going. I mean, if you get the three of us in the same room for a concert, something good is going to happen. Anyway, 329-1899, you can go to the show. Tricia Binford, the head coach of the Montana State women's basketball team, joins us right after this. The Polaris New Year's sales event is on, and now is the time to find your perfect ride at Kurtz Polaris with financing as low as 3.99%, APR for 36 months, and savings of up to $3,500. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and on Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, and Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com, the most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris winter awaits.
Matcha is a versatile green tea chock full of health benefits. Here at Florence Coffee, our high-quality matcha is full of antioxidants, fiber, and chlorophyll, while providing rich, smooth flavor to any matcha drink. Whether you order your matcha hot, iced, or blended, it'll taste great and give your body the boost it needs. Come to any Florence Coffee location or go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call. 406-640-4444 or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Seafood lovers, it's time to get cracking at the Montana Club's annual Lobster Fest. Feast on one of our 19 mouth-watering lobster dishes, live Maine lobster, succulent lobster tail, and tantalizing one-of-a-kind lobster specialties. 3 big days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, March 5th through the 7th. It only happens once a year. Don't miss it. See the menu at MontanaClub.com. The Montana Club's Lobster Fest on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Ryan, do you remember TRL?
Total Request Live. Wouldn't miss it.
Do you remember the moment in American history where it shifted that heavy metal became pop music?
Yes, I do. I was on the forefront of that choice.
As was Korn. And guess what? 20 years later, Korn is coming to Missoula.
The thing I like about Korn is that it's not merely nostalgia. They've reinvented themselves time and again, have just put out yet another new record. Prolific band and managed to maintain relevance over multiple decades, which most cannot say.
You and I will both be attending the Korn concert, and we're going to hook up a bunch of you as well. Tune in to Tutel Nuanez, 4 to 6 every single weekday for your chance to win a pair of tickets to Korn at the Adams Center on Sunday, February 23rd.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. For the second time this season and the 5th time in his career, Montana senior Saeed Pritchett is the Big Sky Conference Men's Basketball Player of the Week. Pritchett did a little bit of everything in leading Montana to a pair of victories over the weekend. He scored 25 points in 30 minutes in a 72-37 dismantling of Weber State, converting at will in the post, and at one point scored 15 of 18 points for the host Grizzlies. 2 nights later, Pritchett flirted with the 3rd triple-double in Montana history, finishing 1 assist shy of the hallowed mark. He did have 24 points and 11 rebounds in that game as well. 78-63 the final over the Idaho State Bengals.
The Montana AAU announced the finalists for the Little Sullivan Award, and the male finalists for Montana's top amateur athlete are Dickinson State wrestler Gresh Jones of Sydney, Montana Western linebacker Jason Ferris of Dillon, Oregon State basketball player Trace Tinkle of Missoula, and Carroll College basketball player Dane Warp of Havre.
The female finalists include Catherine Rousseau from Butte High swim team, the Lady Grizz basketball player Mackenzie Johnston out of Helena Capital, North Dakota State track standout Paige Harris, who's from Plentywood, and then University of Montana golfer Tegan Avery from Kalispell Glacier.
And finally, Montana State will induct 6 former athletes in the Bobcat Hall of Fame Friday night, including legendary former defensive end Dane Fletcher and Ellie Rudy, the only female to ever win a national championship in track and field.
It's Cat Grizz Week for the Grizz. It's Cat Vikings Week for the Cats until it's Cat Grizz Week after tomorrow. And Montana State takes on Portland State, and then we'll get ready for Montana on Saturday. And Tricia Binford, the head coach of the Montana State Bobcats women's team, will join us here in just a moment. By the way, are you ready for a new truck? Get to Mildenberger Motors in Hamilton for the best deals on the best trucks, Duramax, Chevy, or GMC.
We go now to the Regich Brothers RV phone line. We welcome in the head coach of the #1 team in the Big Sky Conference in women's basketball, Tricia Binford from Montana State. Coach Binford, thanks once again for being with us. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me again.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you back on here. And, since we last talked, things have continued to go very well. You are way up on top in terms of the standings in the Big Sky Conference right now. Now, it's nothing like a done deal or anything like that. I understand that there's a lot of basketball left to be played in this regular season. But with the cushion like you've got in conference play, how do you continue to motivate your kids, your girls, to say, hey, night in, night out, we still have to bring it and be at our best and continue to improve? How do you get that motivational message across?
Well, fortunately, this team has not been a team to challenge on motivation. They've been locked in from day one, and they continue to stay locked in. What we've been challenging them on are certain things the second time around when we play our opponents that we have to do better. One of the areas has been rebounding defense. Our percentages haven't been fantastic there, so I think we've made some improvements in that area. I think we're really trying to challenge them on also the big picture. This is a conference where you've got one team that gets to move forward when you hit the tournament, and everybody else wants to be that team. So you're going to have to continue to get better this time of year. You're going to have to make sure that you've got the best fight every single night. We continue to get really good play from our opponents, and we know that the Big Sky, every time you tip it, you need to be ready to go because everybody's capable.
Saturday, you guys won for the 9th straight time over Weber State, moved to 13-1 in Big Sky Conference play. But I watched the whole second half of your game, and it was quite honestly, it was beautiful offensively, the way that you guys played. I think that the way that your team is sharing the ball is outstanding right now. You had 5 different young ladies in double figures scoring, as well as then a 6th with 8 points and a 7th with 7 points. And probably your favorite thing about it was no one played more than 30 minutes either. So the balance of this team, where's that coming from right now, and how difficult do you think that makes you guys to guard?
Well, it's kind of been a strength since day one. I mean, we've been playing that group together since even in the preseason. And, the last, since conference, we've had 2 different situations. We had Oleana out for a few games. Last week we had Maddie Jackson out for a few games. She was sick. She'll be back this week. And what's interesting in both of those situations is it allowed 3 guards for 2 positions or 4 guards for 3 positions to really get great minutes and flow. I think that's a piece as coaches we just kind of have to get out of their way at times. And what we've been able to do throughout the course of the season is just kind of rotate kids in so we don't lose energy and effort, particularly on the defensive end. But the reason we're able to do that is our kids have been very consistent for us. And I think that is a credit to the kids being ready to go and bring to the table what they're great at and their strengths and not trying to be somebody they're not. I think that's when you get people understanding what their role is and how they value that role and bring it to the table, then great things can happen. I think Blair Braxton's a perfect example of that, who is probably not going to stretch you out on the perimeter, but boy, is she going to challenge you on the glass, and she's going to own the paint, and she's going to protect her teammates. And I thought she was a really critical piece for us against Idaho State, just giving us those second opportunities. You just couldn't keep her off the glass, and then our kids get a little bit looser, and they start sharing the basketball a little bit more when we get those kind of defensive possessions. And yeah, I think when they get out of their own way, things just they have a little bit better flow, like you addressed.
I think for when things are going well, for the casual observer, some things maybe get glossed over. But to me, it's so impressive the way that you guys have been able to build your rotation, because you're playing 9 and sometimes 10 pretty consistently. But when you look at all those young ladies, 5 are seniors, 3 are freshmen. So just sort of the opposite sides of the spectrum. What are the biggest challenges as a coach to get that to mesh? Because oftentimes when you have a veteran group with 5 seniors, they might not trust the freshmen, but your seniors seem to trust them tremendously. And when you follow social media, I can tell you all the freshmen, they really, really look up to the seniors. They're always talking about how much they idolize the older girls. So what's that balancing act like, and how have you been able to get it to mesh so well?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 things that have contributed to the chemistry. I think just summer overall in general, the freshmen earn the respect of the upperclassmen based on how hard they go to work every single day. I thought they were super contagious even from the very first practice. Meshing in a Fallon Frege, who's a transfer to us, all of them coming new into the program earn the respect of the returners based on just being great teammates and competing every single day. And then I do think our preseason, we had a lot of time on the road together, and when you're on the road, you're out of your homes, you're in hotels, even our Puerto Rico trip, we just spent a lot of time together to build upon some of those relationships as well. So I would say the upperclassmen spent a lot of time having the freshmen over. I think the freshman class earned a lot of respect early on. And the gelling of that, I think it does help also having a senior and a junior coming off the bench. I mean, Blair Braxton and Tori Martell are 2 upperclassmen that are bringing us just amazing minutes as upperclassmen rotating in. I mean, both of them have been in starting roles. So now that you're throwing them into the mix. But there are times where we have 3 freshmen on the floor. But, at the same time, we're hitting February and almost March. Now nobody gets to be a freshman in this program.
Tricia Binford joining us. She's the head coach of the Montana State Bobcat women's basketball team, and they host Portland State Thursday and then Montana for the second Cat Grizz matchup on Saturday. And Coach, you mentioned Fallon Frege, and I wanted to ask you about her because clearly a change of scene has been hugely beneficial to her. I think she's has just a renewed experience and love for the game being in your program here in this senior year. But for her to come in as a senior, knowing she's a good player, but also being a centerpiece on an already veteran team, how has she been able to so easily graft in, not just as a player, but also as, it seems like, a leader in general and be accepted by those girls?
I would say it's the above and beyond Fallon Frege. This is a kid that's the first in the gym. She's the last to leave. She's doing probably the most film, the most workouts on top of what we're doing every day in practice just to make sure she gets everything out of this one season. You've got the other seniors. 3 of them have run our offense since their freshman year with Oli, Madeline, and Blair. And even Martha, it did take, a good year to get really comfortable in our system. And, Fallon she's finding ways to just drill breakdowns of our actions to make sure she's got it down. She's watching extra film with her position coach, Coach Smallwood, and then she'll also watch quite a bit with me on upcoming opponents on, hey, these are the things that are probably going to be open. These are the things that they're going to take away. I mean, the kid is just a junkie, and she's about the process every day, and sometimes I just even have to challenge her, like, you've done the process, now just let it go and come and just play. And I feel like right now she's just in a really good place of early on maybe forcing the issue, and then once that she allowed that game to come to her, and even the entire team, as you address this last couple of weeks, the kids are just really starting to open up and see what this game can be when we just take what the defense has given us.
Well, and 2, I mean, it doesn't take long in talking to her, and for all the reasons that you just highlighted, but her basketball IQ just seems next level. Is there a certain coach on the floor aspect that she brings to you and the things that she does that is unique in that respect?
Well, I would say she brings it in every category, really. I mean, you've got the basketball IQ part that she brings to the table, things she's seeing, angles to address, maybe even for Darian White, so to speak, when we're trying to deliver post entries and that kind of communication of, hey, look at these angles here, or this is, got to be the right entry on the ball screen. But then there's also just the competitive and the standard that she communicates and motivates with her teammates every day. I mean, she just demands a standard, and she's just such a vocal leader every single day of calling things for her teammates, repeating actions, encouraging, but also demanding their best effort. I think that there's something to be said for that. I mean, the very first practice we had her in was a summer workout, and it was an individual workout. And she was at the complete other end of the gym and just communicating really loud. And so my end of the gym just started becoming louder. I mean, that's how quickly she impacted this team, but it's every facet that she impacts. And she loves it, and she's playing with a sense of urgency. I think our underclassmen are feeling that. I mean, when you have 5 seniors and this is their last opportunity, you're going to feel that sense. I mean, we've been feeling like it's been March since probably early January, just because they're wanting to do some big things, and we're just trying to stay locked into the next game on the agenda.
The schedule quirks continue since the league has been in flux in its membership, and as they continue to remake this schedule, I know that it's a challenging job for the league, and no one's going to be happy. Or I guess you can't make everybody happy, and pretty much no one's happy all at the same time. But the scheduling quirk hits this week for Montana State, with you guys hosting the reigning Big Sky champion Portland State Vikings on Thursday in Bozeman. How do you balance that aspect of it, playing a game before the rivalry game? Is there a way to help maybe dissipate the hype leading into the Cat Grizz game, but also how do you focus on Thursday and still get ready for what is a huge game on Saturday?
Well, the biggest thing is I just remind you guys and Jason not to talk to our players about the Grizz game until Friday. Just kidding. Jason and I did the radio yesterday and kept trying to talk about the Saturday game. So I actually like having the Thursday game. I like being in the normal routine. I like the short turnaround. I think sometimes you can provide too much information to your players. I don't feel like I did a great job for the first Montana game for our team when we had the entire week to prepare. And this team seems to do better with less information and just go out and compete in battle. It's the second time around, so really Monday did a normal week for us. We did fundamental work, got a lot of shots up, watched some film, and then yesterday was a Portland State prep day. Obviously today will be with our scout, and then Friday is going to be our one-day prep day for Montana. So it will be short. It'll be hopefully informative, but it's going to emphasize the things that we need to emphasize, and then we just need to get out of their way and let them go out the second time around. And there will be some new things, but for the most part, we'll be a little bit more familiar with each other.
Well, Coach, we certainly appreciate you being with us. Best of luck this Thursday and Saturday in these next 2 upcoming games and the rest of the way. It's been fun to watch your team. We'll look forward to it the rest of this regular season, all right?
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. Thank you, Coach. Tricia Binford, the head coach of the Montana State Bobcat women's team, hosting Portland State Thursday and the Montana Lady Grizz on Saturday. Quick break on the other side. Pat Kennedy, Episode 6, Grizz Grace, the Coaching Tree, out now. You're going to hear a little snippet from it next. Hey, Mildenberger Motors in Hamilton has the best selection and best prices of new and used GMC, Chevrolet, Cadillac, and Buick. Mildenberger Motors, family-owned for 65 years.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6 is out now with Pat Kennedy. Pat Kennedy was the head coach of the University of Montana for 2 seasons in 03 and 04, in between Don Holst and Larry Krastowiak. He's the one head coach since Judd Heathcote who was outside the University of Montana coaching tree, and his short tenure as head coach at the UM was largely unsuccessful, going under 500 both seasons. That said, his tenure at the University of Montana also marked a turning point for the Grizzly program. What started with great optimism and eventually led to the program giving way to Larry Krastowiak and Pat Kennedy's personal story are also very intriguing. An assistant coach to the great Jim Valvano, and a head coach to a bevy of first-round NBA picks, including Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward at Florida State. Our conversation with Pat Kennedy is both illuminating and highly entertaining. So check out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree Podcast, Episode 6, out now wherever you get your podcasts. Grizz Greats is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, Stockman's Bar, and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. Golder people look at the calendar, may think about college basketball, March Madness, various things going on in the professional world, but this is an unbelievable time of year for high school sports.
In February, the competition really ratchets up in high school sports. We're headed toward the state tournaments of both basketball and wrestling, and we'll cover it all at Tutel Nuanez, 4 to 6 p.m. every single weekday on 102.9 ESPN.
That's right, covering what matters in the state of Montana. Montana's #1 sports talk radio show, Tutel Nuanez.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Pat Kennedy. Episode 6, Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree, out now. We're going to hear from him in just a moment. From that conversation, it's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. If you missed anything in the show, check it out on the podcast. The Tutel Nuanez podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. It's there all the time, thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Colter, Pat Kennedy, great to talk to him. He had 2 years at the University of Montana, largely for many Montana fans, forgettable 2 years, the only guy outside the coaching tree, and yet the conversation we had with him I found to be hugely intriguing. This was great. I look forward to sharing this with the folks right now. We only got a couple of seconds, but just quickly on Pat Kennedy.
Well, I said this in the intro of the podcast, too, so anybody that goes to Grizz Greats, but I think that when you're talking about such a long breadth of history, nearly 50 years that we are covering, I think that there's ebbs and flows, and I think you have to have a ebb to have a flow. Right. You need to have a valley to have a peak. And I think that during the moment, it was hard for people to accept the renovation of Dahlberg Arena, which changed the face of University of Montana men's basketball. Then Don Holst catching lightning in a bottle during that One Big Sky tournament and going to the NCAA tournament, even though it wasn't a great team. And then the bottoming of Pat Kennedy led to the rehiring of Larry Krastowiak, and that set Montana on the trajectory they're on now.
Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast is brought to us by Stockman's Bar, supporting Montana men's basketball for over 50 years. The Bryan team and Mike Nugent at Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, and Blackfoot Communications. Blackfoot is building a high-capacity fiber network to connect businesses and homes to the world. Visit goblackfoot.com for more information. Here you go, a little bit from Pat Kennedy.
When you look at what it takes to recruit the right type of guy to Montana, like you said, it has a big-time university feel, from football to men's basketball to women's basketball. Great fan support, and you're going to have great venues and everything like that. But oftentimes there's just a few things that you run into in terms of recruiting kids from big metropolitan areas, especially on the West Coast. the number one thing being the weather. How's a guy going to be able to endure the Montana winter? How are you going to get him to go to class when he has to walk across the campus where there's not much driving access and he's got to be in the snowstorm for 10 or 12 minutes? It's definitely a key factor. What sort of things in that realm did you run into just in terms of trying to find the right guys that could stick it out at being Montana Grizzlies?
First of all, you got to be honest with the guys. You got to tell them what it's like. Now, on the other hand, you could have a snowstorm in the morning, and in the afternoon, kids are out in their shorts playing tennis, right? So, I mean, we also know what that's like. And then at nighttime, they could go skiing if they wanted to. So, you be honest with them. And, again, they've got to make decisions based on academics, based on the program. Do they enjoy the coaches? Do they want to play in that conference? So I thought we did a very good job recruiting guys. I thought the local guys like Kevin Criswell was a terrific player, and he was a Montana youngster. So, I really felt, look at Tink's boy, Trey, what a great player he's become. So I felt that the Montana kids were very good, and I was very impressed with their work ethic and their abilities. And then, you go like to California, and you get to steal a kid like a David Bell, and he turned out to be a great player. So, recruiting's recruiting. You got to find kids. They got to fit. You got to recruit them honestly. You got to paint an honest picture. And you got to get lucky along the way. I pick out David Bell and Kevin Criswell because they were two awfully good basketball players who ended up having really good careers at Montana and really enjoyed themselves.
Coach, you connect with so many guys along the way, and obviously you got to do that as a basketball coach, and recruiting is a major part of the deal. But you in particular, seems like you related to a whole bunch of guys across a very wide spectrum, both geographically and just sort of culturally and in life and so forth. What was it about what you did and in basketball and et cetera that made you able to connect in such a meaningful way with all these kids over the course of these decades of being a coach?
It's the love of the game. And it's the love of the young men that play the game. And to me, it's an international language. Basketball is an international sport. Look at Tinks, all the years he played over at Spain and the experiences his family had. So to me, I never saw color. I never saw religion. I never saw background. I never saw what kind of money you did or didn't come from. I'm probably one of the fewest coaches in the country that coached in the Northeast, the South, the Midwest, and the West. So I coach in all four major regions of the country. And with the onslaught of these tournaments, where all the AAU kids go to Vegas for a week, or all these kids go to Orlando, Florida for a week, you just become intertwined with high school coaches, AAU coaches. So my network is nationwide, and I'm one of the few coaches that can actually say that because I've dealt with so many people. But it wouldn't matter where I was coaching as long as I felt it was a good situation. So all the places I was, Iona, Florida State, DePaul, Montana, and Towson, I all thought they were pretty uniquely good places to be at. And I do look back and say, I wish when I was there that Montana had a multi-year contract. I certainly wish I thought Wayne Hogan was really dealt a bad hand. I don't think Wayne should have ever taken the fall for the problems that were going on at the university at the time. I thought what happened to him was not to be over dramatic, but I thought it was horrible. That guy was a great athletic director. He did great things there. He still was doing great things there, and he worked his fanny off. And nobody, loved the place and did a better job of promoting it than did Wayne Hogan. So that's one of my regrets. If he had stayed there, I would have stayed there.